In a small, isolated village nestled deep in the woods, there was an old, abandoned mansion that everyone avoided. The locals spoke in hushed tones about the house, saying that a family had vanished from it decades ago without a trace. The mansion had since fallen into disrepair, its windows dark and shattered, and vines crawling up its crumbling walls. One autumn evening, a young woman named Clara, a skeptic with a penchant for the supernatural, decided to explore the mansion. Driven by curiosity and a desire to prove the local legends wrong, she entered the house just before dusk. The air inside was heavy, filled with the smell of mildew and decay. As she wandered through the dimly lit rooms, Clara noticed strange, old portraits on the walls, family members whose eyes seemed to follow her every movement. She dismissed it as a trick of the light and continued exploring. When she reached the basement door, she hesitated, but her curiosity pushed her forward. The basement was dark, save for the flickering light of her flashlight. As she descended the stairs, she heard a faint rhythmic tapping coming from somewhere below. The sound grew louder with each step, like a heartbeat echoing through the walls. At the bottom of the stairs, she discovered an old wooden door, partially ajar. The tapping was now unmistakably coming from within. Clara pushed the door open and was greeted by a sight that froze her blood. A small, dusty room filled with dozens of old antique dolls. Each doll had an unsettlingly realistic face, their eyes wide and glassy, seemingly filled with sorrow. The tapping noise continued, coming from a single doll in the center of the room. Its small porcelain face was cracked, but its eyes seemed to follow Clara with an unnerving intensity. Suddenly, the room grew cold, and the door slammed shut behind her. Clara turned to find the doll's eyes now moving, their heads slowly turning to face her. The tapping grew frantic as the doll's limbs began to twitch and jerk. In a panicked state, Clara tried to open the door, but it was locked tight. She heard whispers in a language she couldn't understand, growing louder and more insistent. The dolls began to move on their own, their tiny, twisted smiles widening as they approached her. Clara's flashlight flickered, and in its weak light, she saw the dolls' faces distort into grotesque, mocking grins. In the darkness, the whispers became a cacophony of shrieks and cries. The dolls, now animated by some malevolent force, surrounded her, their tiny hands reaching out as if to pull her into their nightmarish world. As the darkness closed in, Clara realized with a chilling clarity that the stories were true. The mansion was not merely haunted, it was alive, feeding on the fear of those who dared to enter. Her screams were swallowed by the oppressive silence of the room as the dolls closed in, her fate sealed by the malevolent spirits that dwelled within the house.